Hi, I'm Mimika Cooney, and welcome to Mimika TV, the place to build a brilliant business brand. Well, so you're going to love what we have to talk about today, because we are going to talk about how to discover your brand personality. Kaye Putnam is a brand strategist who helps companies and people discover their truest expression of their brand. With 12 plus years of experience, she's worked with companies ranging from solopreneurs to national nonprofits. She believes that every brand should act human with values, personality, and a point of view. So Kaye's going to share with us exactly how we can figure out our own brand personality so we can build the business of our dreams. So welcome, Kaye. Welcome to Mimika TV. So glad to have you here.
Thank you so much. I have a hunch that we are going to have a great time because I know that you are super passionate about branding as well. So we'll be two branding nerds having a fantastic conversation.
Well, this is going to be super fun. As you know, we love talking about branding, and often people are like, well, what is a brand and why do we need a brand? And everyone thinks it's for big companies, but we're going to dive into why it's not and why Kaye is awesome. Like, I subscribe to your email list, and I think the latest one was like why your brand is like having a baby. That's very interesting. We're going to have to dive into that. So with the topic, we're talking about brand personality. And so let's always sort of dissect it for our audience. Let's go back to the real reason and ask the obvious question. What exactly is a brand?
That is the question, right?
And why should we care, right?
Yeah, that's probably the more important question. So what is a brand? Probably the first thing that comes to people's minds are like the design of your website, your logo, the colors. But that's really just the tip of the iceberg. Your brand is the belief that your target audience has in their mind. So that's their expectation of you. It's the story they tell themselves about you. And it's that perception of you. And you can actually help influence that. Now, the reason this is important is because if you have a really strong brand, you can charge more for essentially the exact same product or service as the next person, and your profit margins are better because you are the one that's top of mind and you're the one that people think of first. So you get a greater market share and you get to charge more for what you're doing, which is amazing.
Right. So exactly. And I think that's what a lot of people get hung up, especially as entrepreneurs or solopreneurs or those running a business. And we think we're not like a big ad agency like the Coca-Colas of the world that have to come up with some brand narrative. It's for everybody. I mean, even if you think about it, every celebrity is their own brand. And we are the face of our own brand. So let's really dive into, and I know people have heard me harp about this, but we're going to give you some actionable bits, and Kaye's going to share exactly how you find that. Because I'm sure you'd agree with your clients as well, and I have this with mine. They often don't even know like what it is, first of all, that they're saying, and then what it is that they should be saying. So let's start with some actionable tips. What would be the first thing if you were working with someone who finds maybe the common complaint is I'm not getting enough clients, I can't get enough sales, I'm not converting my sales copy. These are common sort of symptoms, right? What would you say to someone? What would be the first thing?
Yeah. So with every single one of my clients, I tell them that we have to go back to the beginning. So many people want to do the sexy pieces and the end pieces. So they want to talk about like ads and conversions and the design and all that stuff. But that is really just an expression of what's underneath. So you have to figure out what is in your innermost soul of your business brand. And you might be the same. It might be one and the same as your brand and your business's brand, or it might be separate. Either way, it works the same way. So you have to figure out what your values are, your personality, define that, what your vision is, all of those really big pieces that affect everything else. So that's where I always start.
So now, and you said personality, like us as a person. And I think this is something I made these mistakes too. Oh, so-and-so down the road has got the business right. This is why we're so passionate about it. We like seriously sucked it. That's the beginning. And this is why we've learned to make this work.
Exactly.
Oh, so-and-so has got a business model and they are doing this. Oh, maybe I should do exactly what they're doing. Tell us why that's a bad idea.
Yes, you see this all the time. I actually don't usually work with people when they're first starting out because I think it's a process that we all go through. So we're looking at so in the online entrepreneur space, I'm just going to use examples from there since it's what the space that I play in. But you look at like Derek Halpern and he has this like tough New Yorker kind of funny brand personality. And then you look at Marie Forleo and she's also really funny and she has these great videos and she has these sweet dance moves. Or you look at like Ash Amberjay, who's a copywriter and has this like F you kind of attitude and just doesn't do anything normal. I love all of these people, and they all have very, very distinctive, very different personalities. But if you try to copy them, it's going to come off really inauthentic because it's not true to who you are, and it's going to not work, unfortunately. So imitation does not work in this game. You have to figure out what you stand for first.
And usually it is, as you mentioned, it takes a little bit of testing and trying, where you try something and you realize, trying to do somebody else's way of doing business isn't necessarily going to fit you. It's only when you start being true to, and this is, wouldn't you say, it's almost like it is a personality within ourselves.
Yes.
And like for me, as soon as I stopped trying to worry about what everybody else is doing and please everybody else and just started to be myself, I'm like, yay. First of all, I could breathe. Second of all, I was attracting people that actually liked me. Big difference there. And third of all, it was affecting my bottom line. I could actually, charge the money I wanted, instead of me feeling like you have to fight and claw your way through there. So if we just dissect the personality apart, would you say a brand, someone's building an online brand, like, so I know my instance, I sell courses and I teach online. If we're going to launch something, whether you're launching a book or you're doing an event, how do you take what you are as a personality and how do you package that in a brand to make it sellable? Because we are who we are, but how do you put the two together?
Yeah, so I used to hate reading or hearing the advice to just be yourself. Just act like you. And for some people that comes really easy because you have a really strong personality already. But for myself, I have a lot of different facets of my personality. So on one hand, I can be super analytical. On another hand, I'm kind of like the motivator, cheerleader kind of person who gives a lot of tough love. And then on the other hand, I'm really interested in like systems and theories. So there's all these different facets of my personality that I could have highlighted. So I had no idea what to pick. Oh, I'm also a mother, which is like completely the opposite of all those things, like very nurturing, love my children, that kind of thing. So I'm like, okay, like what do I do? Because these are all authentic. They're all me. But if I try to fit them all into my brand, everybody's going to be confused. And I like to say that confusion kills sales. So I created a personality quiz that breaks down your personality into very tangible things, like the types of content you like to share, like a personal motto. And then by taking that quiz, it actually self-selects for you. Like, this is the strongest piece of your personality. This is what you should highlight. So I think it's been taken over 11,000 times now by different entrepreneurs. Yeah, it's been amazing. So I think that's a really great place to have kind of a, what's the word? You can't argue with it because you're putting in what you believe. So once it spits out an answer, it gives you a really clear way to narrow in and package up your brand.
Because I mean, that's the thing, is we hear the word authenticity a lot, but it's like, like David says, the authentic buzzword is really starting to get overused, and most people are now using it wrong because it's like, I need to be authentic. Okay, so what exactly does it mean, being authentic? It's like, you want to be able to be yourself. So like everything that you talk about, even in everything from you say, like say for on videos, like I'm a big video proponent. It's the same thing would go according to maybe to the copy you write on your website, or maybe what you say in your emails. So if you're kind of writing like somebody else, it's almost like you wouldn't say that, right? Like, I don't swear. So if I started to drop F-bombs in my email newsletter, people would be like, oh my gosh, what are you doing? Don't do that. Gary Vee, don't do that. And then it's like creates this disconnect. So David's saying, oh my gosh, to be funny. I mean, like, I like to keep our ladiness. We like to keep it nice and clean, and we don't need to keep it authentic. So again, let's overuse the word. Yeah. So
just keep going.
Cracking ourselves up, right? So how do we take that and make it into a business? Because I mean, we know, like you said, we're like onions. We're all full of different layers. But how do we know which layers to put out there? Would you say kind of create like a brand personality for the different types of things and test it? Or how do you know what resonates most with people?
I'm in the camp that you should go with your strongest facet of your personality. If you need help, take the quiz, because it's hard to kind of overgeneralize that.
Yeah. You can type on the comment section. What is the link to there? Because people can go and grab that. And the funny thing is, that's how I found out about it. It was like, I think 3 years ago, I found you and I did the quiz. And then I did it again like a year ago. And it's funny, like it does change.
It changes. Yeah.
It does change like this personality test, like, very analytical and when you're working in a certain environment and then you start to change. So it's good to kind of like update it. So there you go. Make sure you go and grab and do the quiz as well. So what do you find like with the quiz? Okay, you're saying your strongest trait. So give us an example. What would be a strongest trait that would be a sellable business model or product?
So my brand personality archetype, my outcome from that quiz is the magician. And the magician personality is very future focused. I'm very transformation focused. So I help people get from where they are now to a new place using my specific recipe of branding. So that's how I portray the magician personality. And I also try to be really put together. I don't come off as super casual typically. So once I had that outcome, then I was able to think through each of my touch points. So when somebody lands on my website, how do I want them to feel? When somebody sees me on social or on video, how can I highlight those magician parts of me? So I'm creating a consistent brand experience over all of the different platforms.
Okay. So it's kind of like you just showing up in different places, but you being the same, using the same authentic, like, as you said, if you find it uncomfortable to start standing on the table and start dancing, like in your videos, don't do that. If it doesn't work for you, if it feel like really like, this feels like kind of lame. Why am I doing this again? So yeah, you just got to do that a couple of times and you'll be really like, seriously, this doesn't work. So what would we say like now, okay, so you're the magician, right? And I think when I did the test, I'm also a magician, if I remember correctly. Only when drunk, Crystal said that. Yeah, don't try to be funny if you're not normally funny. So yeah, it doesn't work. It's okay. So we've got past the authentic side. How do we create that as like a business model? Like say, how do you attract those people who then will like that brand? How do you show up in places that they say, okay, this is me? Does it help you make choices like say social media platforms you should be on, places you hang out? Does it relate to that too?
It does. To a point. So the way that I use archetypes is that it helps me make decisions on how I look and what I say. So that's going to show up on all of the different platforms. I think as far as like picking a social media platform, you just got to go with what comes natural to you. So if video comes natural to you, you should do video no matter what archetype you are. But back to what you say and how you look. I want to highlight those specific pieces of my personality. So I make sure that I match up colors that are going to have that kind of futuristic tech, like high tech kind of feel. I have like a very deep navy blue that I use in my brand. And then all of my words I'm using, for example, let me give you a concrete one. Instead of calling my newsletter a newsletter, I applied my brand archetype to it and I call it the brand insights list. So I'm giving people that spark of understanding that the magician is known for, that transformation where you get the aha moment. So you really need to go through like each one of your pieces, like wherever you're showing up, whether that's in like a 404 error page or a like a email confirmation that you got on my email list, hit confirm. Like each of those pieces, we were talking to somebody, your personality needs to be showing up. You should never have the default because people ignore the default.
That's a good question. I need to update all my hey, you got here. Yay. Like a lot of mine. Pointing things. And this is really, I mean, it's funny because I'd almost describe it like when you're not walking in your true brand personality, you feel almost like claustrophobic, like either you're being held back or you're feeling really exposed, which is a really good indication that you're not doing the right way. So let's talk about the fact that, okay, so say you've started something, you're now like say 2 or 3 years into your business and you realize this isn't working. What would your advice be then?
This is like every single one of my clients.
Exactly. Maker.
It happens every time this way. Like we go through this figuring out process. And we didn't mention this before when we were just establishing what a brand is, but everybody has a brand, whether you're paying attention to it or not. And then usually a year or two in, you're like, oh my goodness, what am I saying? Like, I don't even recognize myself because either you sound way too corporate and you're trying to put up this front where you're talking in third person about yourself, even though it's just you, or like we're saying, my team does da 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 da, and it's just like one person, you're like not being authentic to that. Or you were a different person a couple years ago, which I know is true for me. I've grown a lot. So that happens with a lot of my clients. So when you get to that point, it's a great time to step back and really look at like, how do I best serve the world? What do I believe to be true about the world that I want? Like, what's my point of view? What do I want people to understand about me? Because once you start figuring out those deep internal truths about yourself and you start communicating them out loud in your content, on your website, in your headlines, through your colors, etc., then you start attracting the people who, like you said earlier, like actually like you. Like, I get you. Please work with me. And that happens really naturally once you figure out the basic truths about yourself, and then you aren't afraid to share it.
Okay, so let's dive a little deeper. So what do we mean by the truths and our beliefs? Like how, for some people, they're like, how on earth does that relate to my business, right? Because we're so used to the old corporate, and thou, thou, now, we shall talk like this. Because, like if my English teacher saw the way I wrote my newsletters and on my blog posts, she would freak. But that's not how we do business anymore. We speak like this, so we should write like this. And I think it's a good point. So what does exactly you mean your values? Are we talking about like how we, what does that mean exactly?
So your values or your beliefs, I like to call them beliefs. I literally ask my clients to come up with a list of 25 things that you believe to be true about the world and true about your industry and true about your work that other people might disagree with. So I believe
like world peace kind of a thing.
Kind of, yeah. But world peace, everybody kind of has this like vague feeling that, yeah, of course there should be world peace. Nobody really disagrees with that. So you want to pick things that people would disagree with, and you want to pick things that you almost have like an emotional, visceral reaction to. So I believe that if your dreams don't scare you, and this is a quote you'll find like on Pinterest or whatever, but it really resonates with me. If your dreams don't scare you, they're not big enough. So I really want to work with people. I say that I like to work with entrepreneurs with big dreams. And the reason I say that out front and loud and clear is because that's one of my innermost, most basic values about my business, is that if you are just building a small business, or if you're just doing this as a hobby, or you don't really have big aspirations, you're just staying comfortable, that's not my ideal client. That's not what I believe. So I don't want to work with people like that. I want to work with people who are like raring to go and ready to change the world in their own little way. So that's an example. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, it's like if you will attract people who think like you, like, and this is one of my branding mistakes I made, is I was trying to convince people to come to my point of view. Come over to my camp. This is what we think here. And they're like, Simon Sinek says, don't try to make people believe what you want to believe. Yeah. Go and find people who believe what you believe. So it's a great point. Exactly. David's made a really interesting pointer here as a question. So, many about pages are usually the worst places where people show up and are not true to authentic selves. So let's talk about that a bit, because an about page is what? Not really about us, right?
That's the first thing I was going to say. So contrary to what the page is called, your about page is not really about you. It's about connecting with your ideal client. So that's the first part of it. And the way that I do that is very literally with those belief statements. So like on the top of my about page, I have the belief statements because I want to weed out the people right away who don't think the same way as I do. And as a side note, if you're really struggling with your ideal client and you're trying to figure out who your target market is, if you're a solopreneur or just a small team, that person is likely very similar to you. I see it over and over and over again. They're going to have very similar values to you. So don't stress out about that whole exercise so much because they're you. You just have to kind of market to people like you, because it's going to make working with them so much more enjoyable.
Yeah, so you resonate with it. Like, as you said, like if your brand isn't showing up, like I had this conversation with one of my clients the other day, like she's, a photographer, and she's like, I can't seem to get enough clients, and I know I should do families, but I really love working with the single ladies because I'm single and I've never had kids and I love to have like, I'm like, well, why are you bothering with the families? You are single, so go for the single ladies who want to paint the town red on Saturday nights and dress up all glam, right? And she's like, oh, yeah, that makes total sense. Well, yay, honey, I'm glad I pointed that out for you. And sometimes it's that obvious, and it stares us in the face, and we're like, okay, and this is talking real life, real truth. about myself. It was staring me right at the face, but I couldn't see it. It took my 13-year-old at the time to say, Mom, I don't know why you're finding this so hard to find out your brand colors and what you should look like. Just look at your wardrobe. Like,
Yep.
what movies do you watch? Like, where do you hang out? Like, where do you buy your stuff? And I was like, that's so true. Really, it is. And Crystal says, and I think your comment is relating to About Me pages, right, Crystal, about this is the worst thing ever to write because we get so weirdy about ourselves and trying to figure out what exactly. So break it down for us. How should we write on About Me page? What should be on there?
Yep. So I lead with the values, do that weeding out process right away. You have to follow up with credibility. And this is where people really struggle, myself included. So you have got to instill a sense of credibility, which usually means you're talking about like case studies, places you've been featured. This is the place that feels kind of inauthentic.
Are you saying like, work with me because I've been featured on Huffington Post, so then I must be a good writer, right? That kind of stuff? Yeah. Or like, what do you mean? Like, because I mean, there's a time and place for testimonials because we're not really talking about the product you're selling, right? We're talking about you and what you do.
Yep. Yeah. So it's probably not going to be a testimonial on your About page. It's going to be your proof points. So it's going to be how many clients you've worked with, the credentials, all of those things that make people warm and fuzzy about working with you and give you that. Because we started with emotion, we started with the values, and you have to follow that up with logic because that's how people make decisions. So emotion first, then logic. So you have this piece where you have to kind of prove yourself, especially online, because it's such a low trust environment. People can kind of say whatever they want to say. But you have to kind of brag about yourself at this point. You have to tell that transformation. And I'm giving the next part away here. The next thing I like to do is to tell a story.
So, great. First one, number one was values.
Yeah, values.
Second was
logic. So all of your proof points. And for people who have a hard time with this, who feel really, really weird about bragging about themselves, I like to make them write out an I love me list. So this is a list of
that's so cute.
50 to 100 reasons why somebody should hire you. Like every single possible reason. Like I have a child that I need to feed, or I
love coffee in the morning.
I drink coffee in the morning. I skied in the Junior Olympics when I was 17, which is actually true, but probably not a reason why somebody's going to hire me now.
Because I'm trying it on my side as well, and I'm always undecided about it. I have like a list of like 17 things you don't know about me. Is that kind of lame?
No, because it creates a personal connection. You just have to make sure you're doing it in the right place. So if you have a 17 things, like one of those like fun facts about me, that would go almost at the very bottom of the page.
Okay.
Because emotion first, then logic, then you're going to tell us your story. So this is your low to high story. So you need to tell the point of transformation so your clients understand where you're coming from. And they also need to kind of be able to see themselves in your story. So for example, for me, I'm not going to tell the whole story because it's a little bit long, but a really low point in my career was I had to get a contract job because my husband moves around a ton. Like we move every 2 or 3 years. And I was at home for like 6 months trying to find a job. It was awful. And I finally got a contract job as a teller in a bank in rural Tennessee. And I grew up in Michigan, but I found myself working for like $230 a week and faking a Southern accent so that people would like me to hide the fact that I'm a Yankee. So it was a very low point because I wasn't being authentic in my brand. I was working below what I felt like I was worth. And it was just awful. And at that point, I realized that I needed to build a brand for myself. And from that low point, I have built a brand for myself online so that my husband's transient job doesn't affect my career as much as it used to. And these are all the things that I've done to build this completely location independent branding career. So that's my low to high story. So people can see themselves in that really frustrating, sucky job. Or maybe they're kind of like along the journey somewhere. They've made the leap and they're working towards like a location independent career like I have, but they're just a few steps behind me so that I can help them come up to where I am.
So yeah, it's kind of like the before and afters. That's why they, makeovers work so well. Is this is where I started, and this is where I ended up, and it's like people love those, like all the TV programs. So you're saying low to high. In other words, a low point to where you found that because you applied the branding principles in your own business, you were then able to pull yourself up. So people are really buying into the journey that you're going to take them on too.
Yep. And this is there's a little bit too much content in this comment to fully explain it, but I'm using my brand archetype in this story too, because I'm talking about my own transformation. So the different archetypes are going to have different story drivers. So for example, the hero archetype might talk about like all the different challenges that they had along the way, and then how their grit and motivation helped them overcome each one of those challenges. So you can apply your personality and your archetype to that story that you're telling on your about page to make it even more powerful and more on brand.
I need to take the test again because that sounds more like me. Yeah, definitely. It makes a lot of sense. And yes, I know I'm the branding specialist too, but this is just why this exercise is good to do no matter where you are in your business, and you do it regularly. Like David Warner says, our story is not like a Ronco cooker where you set it and forget it. It's always evolving as chapters are written. That's fabulous. I love that. That is such a tweetable.
I know, that's fantastic.
So for those who've just joined us, just to give you a bit of a rundown, we're diving deep into how to create a brand story based on, things that are yourself, really. And what Kaye's covered is we went over the ideas of your brand story. So, first you got to start with values. Then we got to go to logic and proof. And then you said, then we talk about the story. And this is particularly pertaining to your About Me page. So we've told the story. Then you say, what do we do after that?
So after you tell the story, the bulk of your About page is done. And that's where you add in the fun pieces that people usually lead with on their About page. So these are the things like your timeline, your like the fun facts about me, where I live, here's my family, that kind of stuff. But that needs to go at the very bottom of the page because people aren't going to care about you and your brand until they go through that process of emotion, logic, and story. So you always follow up with those pieces. You don't lead with them because your About page is one of the first places that people will land on your website. So you need to treat it as such. It's not people who know you. It's people who are looking to get to know you and to see if you're worth getting to know.
Right. Now, and how would you say because I need to work on my About page. Everything's a mess. I've got everything backwards. So now the thing is and I'm sure you find this as well, you need to have the sort of like About page that relates to people who want to work with you, but then you have the official, like the third person for interviews. Like if you were doing a press release, would you say that goes on your About Me page too, or do you have that as a separate download, or where do you mix that all in?
It depends on what your goals are. So if you're doing a lot of speaking or a lot of press appearances, then it should be on its own page. I don't do a ton of them. I just do them here and there. So I put it at the bottom of my normal About page. Okay.
So I have my own, I do a lot of interviews and I do a lot of interviewing. So there's always that sort of credibility factor. People want to know, okay, who is she? So they kind of figure it out. And I have learned that. I've actually separated the press onto another page. But there is that flow. And this is why I love video too, because you can really tell your story, but using the same format that Kaye's just gone over. So we can totally redo a story based on these whole prospects. So basically what we're saying is with the About Me pages, this is why you will know, like, and trust me, and why we should work together, right?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
How then do we then convert them to actually like emailing us and getting them over that factor? What else can we do with our brand to really get them to actually pick up the phone and do business with us?
So that's a great segue because you're helping me with a piece that I forgot on your About page. So thank you. So like I said, your About page is one of the first places that people land. So you have got to include a call to action on that page for what they should do next. And in most cases, since they are pretty early in the relationship, that would be an invitation to join your email list. That is usually the first ask that you'll give to somebody. So right on your homepage, you should have a very prominent call to action. On your About page, it's really important. And then on your individual blog posts, it's really, really important because people are likely to land there without knowing anything else about you. And then from the email list, that's where you're going to show off your personality more. You're going to give a lot of value, because you have to invest in your audience before they'll be willing to invest in you. And then after you do some series of that, then you can ask for a sale.
Right. So it's back to the basics of business is like dating, right? You don't go up to a girl and say, hey, honey, you want to get married? Or a guy and be like, gross. Don't do that. So we need to take it slow and ask for her number first, and then we can move to the next stage. So before we get into the next tips, I do have to mention, for those who recently joined us, here at Mimika TV, what we do differently to a lot of other shows is that you get a chance to win some great goodies. Now, if you've been paying attention, good for you, because at the end, we're going to give you a chance to win this week's Goodie Giveaway, which Kaye has kindly donated, which is a 1-hour brand strategy consultation worth $249. And one of you, of our lucky audience, who's the first person to type the answer to a question, will be able to win that. So let me just see what the questions are here. Yes, so we were talking about CTAs and calls to action. So, and I know we've really gone over a lot of the content. So before I actually forget, because I did this the other day and I totally forgot to even give it away. I'm like, sorry, I have to do it again. So what is this is so obvious. Please, darlings, please tell me you're going to get this. First person to type in the comments, what is the first page that people go and visit when they come and find your website? It's super easy. Yay, Crystal! Super.
Yay!
Congrats, you won. Yay. I'm going to just give you, hold on, let me just type it in there. How would you like Crystal to get in touch with you, Kaye? Would you prefer a direct message on Twitter or?
I know Crystal very well, so I will reach out to her.
Oh, you're a super fan.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah. She's a part of my faith.
Okay, well, let's, we have to, how do we do that? We block people. I think there's a way to block people. Yes. Okay. We'll get
fantastic.
So moving on while I clean up our dashboard over here. So that's the first time I've seen that happen. That's a very interesting concept there. Anyway, so we are talking about branding and how on earth we can actually make our best brand personality. So once you've figured out your brand personality, how then do we then move that? Say you said to email, right? We asked them to actually email us. Give us some tips of how we can actually then convert that conversation, keeping our authentic to our brand, and say email copy.
Yes. So you mentioned this earlier, and it's great advice. So I'm going to reiterate it, put a little pin in it. We should be writing how we talk. And this is especially true of solopreneurs or people who are small teams. We overthink the writing process way too much, way too much, especially if we start going down the rabbit hole of like actual copywriting, like the copywriting for conversion or for direct marketing. We all start to sound really skeezy and not like ourselves at all. So whatever strategy you're applying to your email marketing, you need to make sure it still sounds like you. I'm not sure where I heard this or if I'm making it up, so I might be ripping somebody off. But you need to kind of do the best friend or the spouse test. So if you read your copy out loud to your spouse or to your best friend, are they going to look at you with like kind of a crinkled nose, or are they gonna,
sometimes like, seriously, are you really going to go with it?
Yep. I was rewriting my sales page for my one-on-one service, and I have a great group of business buddies, and I had this headline about you want to build your significant brand, and she looked at me. She's like, "Kaye, I've never heard you say that in your life." I'm like, yeah,
that's a big word.
It's true. Not something that just rolls off the tongue. It's not something that I would say. So whether you're talking about email or sales copy, make sure that it sounds like you. You can apply the principles, like you're going to tell stories, you're going to share your credibility, your proof points, your values, all those things, but make sure you're doing it in your own voice.
Mm-hmm. And here's another thing that I've also figured out, that sometimes if you find it hard to write, just actually speak. Like, where's my iPhone? Somebody's taking my iPhone. But just even recording yourself on video, like you would have a conversation and then just like transcribe what you've said. And you can do some grammatical changes, but sometimes that's even more authentic than you trying to figure things out. And that's why I find sometimes working with external copywriters who don't know me very well, it's a long time for them to sound like me, that sometimes it's easier for you just to speak and then, use that in your copy. So that's some really awesome tips. So just to remind everybody, if you even enjoyed today's content, make sure to click to subscribe to my channel and share it with your friends. Anytime during the feed, even during the replay, you can click to tell a little bit and share our replay, because we got some great content. This will be on the YouTube channel and then as well as on my blog. But tell us, Kaye, how can everybody get in touch with you? Where's the best place to find you?
I'm not hard to find online. So my name is Kaye Putnam, and everything is branded underneath my name, including my website. So it's KAYEPUTNAM.com. And you can find links to everywhere else there.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I tell you, it's nice having a different name because people can certainly find you. And one thing you did mention as well is that, Kaye's, you look up for her, you can find her. That's the thing we didn't mention, is brand consistency, right? Well, I think we did. Did we? I think we did. Yes, yes, Crystal, thanks. Crystal says put in the link over there. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And so one last thing, if you had to round it all up, for someone to figure out, the first thing they need to take away is a takeaway tip for finding their best brand personality, what would you say? If you could narrow down into one.
I know it is tough. So one takeaway tip, I'm going to reiterate what I said in the beginning. Do not be afraid and do not shy away from taking the time to figuring out what you stand for and what you actually want to say before you dive into creating your website, trying to write your copy, write ads, all those other things that are vying for your attention. I like to say that branding is the one decision that you can make that makes all of the rest of them so much easier. So do that work first. It'll save you a lot of time with the rest of the stuff, even though it feels like it's not directly applicable yet. Make sure you do that inner work first.
Definitely. As I said, I like to relate branding to, like, if you're building a house, it's the foundations. It's the foundations of the house, and then you do like your marketing strategies or the walls, and then all the other promotion you do is the finishing touches. You can't build a house without a foundation. And because if you say, people say, well, what should I use, Facebook ads or should I use Google ads? And I always say that's not the right question. It's really where your audience is. And so I said, that's why branding gets me so excited. And it's only through making these mistakes that we realize, when you're down a path and you realize, hang on, what am I doing here? These are not my ideal peeps. I shouldn't be, in this place. Like, get me out of here. I need to be with the people who know and understand me. So great topics, great content you've been able to share. So, and if you've enjoyed what we've had to share, please do go ahead and share it with your friends. And if you want more freebie resources that I only share with my newsletter community, you can find mine at my website, and I'll type it in here. It's mimikacooney.com. And again, just like Kaye, I'm everywhere on social media as Mimika Cooney. And I actually have a video series I'm busy working on. And I'm always updating that with some great freebies to help you on your business journey. So I'm going to say thanks, Kaye, for joining me here. I so appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule, because you are one busy lady. And thanks to everybody for watching, and make sure to keep up with us. And as a last note, I always like to leave it with a bit of a pep talk, which is, you need to believe in yourself. You are worth it. You can do what you love and be paid for living it. So thanks for watching Mimika TV. Until next time, take care.